So in June 2020, I had exactly 0 bottles in my home bar. Approximately 2.5 years later, I had nearly 40. And I built the entire collection on a budget. No splurging, no impulsive buying, and no breaking the bank. In this video, I'm going to be showing you exactly how I did it. And if you follow the exact steps I lay out in this video, you'll be able to do the exact same thing. For those of you that don't know, my name is Ram Virpin. I'm a full-time medical doctor, and I've been a home bartender for over 5 years now. During that time, I've learned to make over 100 different cocktails and I've thrown over 50 cocktail parties. And I teach other busy professionals how to make cocktails at home. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys the exact story of how I built a massive bottle collection of nearly 40 bottles in just 2.5 years as a home bartender. And the way to do this is to just start with one cocktail. This is the way that I did it. In June 2020, the first cocktail that I ever made was a Negroni. And the Negroni requires 3 ingredients: gin, Campari, and sweet vermouth. So I went out to the liquor store, I bought those 3 bottles, and then I made a Negroni. And not only did I make a Negroni, I also really learned and understood the Negroni recipe. I made the Negroni for myself, I made the Negroni for other people, and I really enjoyed the Negroni. And once I felt that I was ready to move on to the next cocktail, then I researched the next cocktail, looked up the ingredients, watched videos on how to make the cocktail, learned the recipe, went to the liquor store, and bought the ingredients for that. And that includes ingredients that are both alcoholic and also non-alcoholic ingredients like fruit juices, syrups, and other things like that. And this is really how I built my home bar. I picked one cocktail, bought the bottles for that cocktail, mastered that cocktail, understood that cocktail, enjoyed that cocktail, served that cocktail to others, threw parties where the cocktail was on the menu for that party. Then I did the same thing with the second cocktail and the third cocktail, and then the 4th cocktail, 5th cocktail, 6th cocktail, 7th cocktail, 8th cocktail, 9th cocktail, 10th cocktail. I just did that so on and so forth. And over a long period of time, remember, I grew from 0 bottles to 40 bottles, and not in 3 months, not in 6 months, not in 12 months, not even in 2 years. I did it in approximately 2.5 years. So across that very long timeline of slowly accumulating bottles by learning one cocktail at a time and just going out and buying the ingredients for that. I never had really any of those big liquor store purchases. I would say the biggest one was when I was starting to get into tiki, because tiki requires so many different types of liquors, especially rums. Those were really the only times where I went out and made those big purchases where I purchased like 5 bottles at once. Most of the time, it was really just like 1 or 2 bottles at a time. And I learned how to make cocktails with that. And then I moved on to the next cocktail and learned how to do that, and so on and so forth. And really an easy way to do that is to find some overlap between your first cocktail and your second cocktail. For example, for your first cocktail, like myself, you could have done the Negroni, bought gin, Campari, and then sweet vermouth. Then you could have picked another gin cocktail, for example, something like the Bee's Knees, so that instead of having to buy new bottles, you don't have to buy any actual new bottles of alcoholic ingredients. For the Bee's Knees, you just have to go out and buy honey, make some honey syrup, and buy some lemon juice, and then you can make the Bee's Knees. And then you can go out and buy some simple syrup and lime juice, and then go out and make the gin gimlet. So you're not even accumulating any newer bottles. And then when you want to buy a new alcoholic bottle, you can buy something like a bottle of bourbon, and then you can combine the bourbon with the Campari and the vermouth that you already own and make a Boulevardier. And so you can do it even easier than I did. I think I was more of a brute force method where I was learning cocktails that didn't necessarily have that overlap. But if you really want to build this up even more slowly and more affordably and more on a budget, you can really do it that way, where you just pick one cocktail, and then for your second cocktail, you try to find some overlap in the ingredients, whether it's non-alcoholic or alcoholic ingredients. So that way, when you're going to the store, instead of having to buy 3 or 4 new ingredients, you're really just buying maybe 1 or 2 new ingredients, and you're using that overlap to really slowly build up your bar. And doing this, you're also reducing the amount of waste that you have, because you really just pick one bottle and you learn everything, and maybe you even finish that bottle. But if you don't, then you can slowly accumulate your things over time. And this applies not just to home bartending. This is actually a strategy that I learned really from fashion. You may not be able to tell from watching these videos, because I just wear a t-shirt and the same apron on pretty much all my videos. But I'm actually a really big fan of fashion. I especially like watches and shoes, but I also, I'm a doctor, so I wear business casual to work, and I've accumulated a lot of like dress pants and dress shirts and things like that. And I never had any of those big days where I went out and purchased like 4 pairs of shoes in one day, or I went out and purchased like 3 watches, or I went out and bought, it's Black Friday's coming up. I'm recording this just a couple days before Black Friday. I didn't go out on Black Friday and purchase, like 5 dress shirts and 2 pairs of pants that I would then wear to work for the next week or something like that. I really just accumulated everything slowly over time. I took good care of my clothes, especially shoes and watches and things like that, so that over time, I built up a nice collection. I started, same thing with those things. I also started with 0, and then I slowly built up over time. I bought a few things here and there. I would only just buy 1 or 2 watches at a time, 1 or 2 shoes at a time, 1 or 2 shirts, pants at a time, things like that. And over time, then my closet would accumulate to the point where it got to be a nice collection. And that's really the same principle that I've applied to bartending as well. Now, with bartending, you will tend to use up the ingredients a lot more. There's no such thing as bottles that last forever. But if you do it in this more thoughtful way where, you're not really wasting ingredients because you're buying your ingredients slowly and you're learning cocktails one at a time and really enjoying and mastering those cocktails one at a time to ensure that the ingredients actually get used up properly, you're not having to waste things. This is how you can do things on a budget. And you can go like myself over a long, this is, like I said, this is over a long period of time. This is 2.5 to 3 years that I went from 0 bottles to 40 bottles. And I started this whole thing with home bartending in June 2020, which was actually the same month that I moved to Albany, New York for my residency for internal medicine. And 3 years later, I graduated and I moved back to my hometown of Las Vegas at that time. And when I moved back, I had actually finished all of those bottles. I built that collection up to like 35, 40 bottles, somewhere in that range. And then by the time I left, I had dwindled the collection all the way back down. So when I left, I actually only had a few bottles left. I gave those away to some of my friends that were staying. And then I moved back and I only took back with me one, it was an expensive bottle of scotch that my friend got as a graduation present. That was the only thing I got when I took back with me when I moved back to Las Vegas in, it was approximately I think it's September of 2023. And since then, it's been over 2 years since then. I've also now accumulated my home bar back up. So I started this journey a second time when I moved across the country, and I only took one bottle with me. And now I've accumulated that collection up to approximately 20 bottles now. So I did the same thing then. I picked one cocktail that I wanted to make, bought the ingredients for that cocktail, made that cocktail, enjoyed that cocktail, and then did the same thing with the second cocktail and the third cocktail and the fourth cocktail. And that's how, even in this point of my life where I'm not drinking as much or throwing as many parties because I have other things that are going on in my life, I've still managed to accumulate my collection from 0 again, all the way back up to approximately 20. So I've done this multiple times throughout these last 5+ years. And this was the exact way that I did it. And I did it without breaking the bank, or I never really had any of those days where I went to a liquor store and I purchased like 5, 6 bottles at once, with the exception of when I was learning tiki for the very first time. And really that was only like one or maybe 2 purchases like that. Everything else was more of a slow burn where I would just go to the liquor store, buy 1 or 2 bottles and really use those bottles and learn how to make cocktails with those ingredients. And then I would move on to the next cocktail, so on and so forth. And then this way, over a very long period of time, I'm talking 2, 3, 4, 5 years. There is no timeline on how long you need to go to accumulate your collection. But if you operate on this very long timeline, that's how you can build your home bar up from 0 bottles like I did all the way up to nearly 40 bottles. And I did it all on a budget because at that time I was a resident doctor, so I was living on more of a budgeted lifestyle. And I didn't really have the money to go out and spend like tons and tons of money just on ingredients all at once. I had to do this more slowly and more thoughtfully. And I understand a lot of you guys are probably in a similar situation where you can't just go out and spend hundreds of dollars at one time at the liquor store. This is the way to do it thoughtfully, like I said. You go out and you pick a cocktail that you want to learn and you just buy the ingredients for that cocktail, really learn and master that cocktail. And if you're feeling up for it, also throw parties and serve that cocktail to other people. And then you do the same thing with the second cocktail and so on and so forth. So that over a very long period of time, I'm talking 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you'll slowly build up your collection. And you like myself, will go from 0 bottles to 20, 30, 40, maybe even 50 bottles in your home bar, depending on how long you're going to be doing this for and how passionate and enthusiastic you are for the hobby. So anyways, that's all I have for today's video. If you found the advice in this video helpful, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I really like to do 2 styles of videos on this channel. The first will be where I do a tutorial showing you all how to make a specific cocktail. And the second style of video will be more like this one, where I share stories from my home bartending journey. I do guides on different bartending topics. I share tips and tricks and things that I've learned over the past 5+ years and things like that I hope will help you guys become better home bartenders. Anyways, that's all I have for today's video. Thank you. Cheers.